Jesus loves you. Jesus loves you.
Well, hi. It's been a while. I've been moving and also very busy. I'm moving into a new, larger house, and as such, I'm going to need to set up my data network, my phone system, all the home automation. So I thought I'd take you through that. The first step, before we get anything else, the absolute first step to building your home network is you need a piece of plywood. So we're on our way to the Home Depot because I went to Lowe's and they're useless. Alright, bargain of the century. For less than $20, and I only got the piece of backer board I need, but I also got a piece of dry erase stock and a piece of painted pegboard. So this is gonna be fun. Here's our gigabit internet connection. And up here, where the insulation is gonna be where I'm gonna put my backer board. And then to that, I'm gonna attach all my equipment. Right here, I've already toned out all the phone cables for this house. I know exactly where they all run. And I've also installed this this box right here, so that we have AC and DC power right here. The cable guys already used it to plug the modem in. So this is a rough draft of everything I have to build in my house. Here's my desktop computer and all the displays that get connected to it. Here's the video routing infrastructure. The blue is audio routing infrastructure, which includes the phone system and all this other bullshit I have to deal with. Alright, so it's a little bit later on. Let me show you what I got here. First of all, I put in this light here. It's gonna stay plugged in. I was gonna tie it back to this light, which is on the switch here. But I'd have to put an outlet box up here. And it's an LED light, so I think I'm just going to leave it plugged in full time. There's a really interesting story about a piece of old telephone equipment that stopped working when they turned the lights off in the CO. I think it was the automatic number identification circuit. So what they would have is they would have numbers 1 through 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, and these would be these iron rings. And when they provisioned your phone line, when they hooked it up, they would take it and they would run it through your phone number. So like if your phone number was 1, 2, 3, 4, they would run it through the 1, and then the 2, and then the 3, and then the 4. And when you placed a long distance call, they put a very specific high frequency tone on the line, and those iron rungs would detect through inductance which phone line they were identifying. And that's how they would know your number, even though the actual wires were not, you know, tied to your actual number, anything but logically. And apparently, I don't know, there was probably some tolerances where that stopped working when they turned the fluorescent lights off, but this is not a fluorescent light, this is an LED, and it will not turn off. Now, I put this backer board on here. This is where I'm going to put my equipment. I showed you I installed this yesterday. So the first thing to go in is the BCM. It just goes in, you just screw in this right here. And then it just fucking sits in that, like so. A little bit more shit connected. Most of this is temporary. This is pretty much permanently set up. This is still missing a mounting bracket. This breakout panel won't be used. I'll be using a 25 pair cable that's going to go to this punch down block. This ATA is there, but all this wiring is temporary. I'm going to have a terminal block up here. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to use a 66 block or what, because I have all this fucking non-punchable solid core phone wiring that I have to terminate. So far I'm terminating it like this because this is the most reliable way. Slightly better than this. Even these surge protectors are not permanently connected because there's going to be my battery backup unit, which is not here. So I've got 6 of my extensions set up so far. And the biggest problem with dealing with cabling phone wiring in an existing house. So let me show you something real quick. Here's another location where there's just a wire going into a box, and then the box was plated up. So I put a jack here, and there's also a jack like over here. There's plenty of jacks all over the place. But the biggest problem with using existing phone wiring is that in a normal house, all the lines are usually doubled altogether. So in this house, all of the phone lines from all of the jacks were coming back here and were connected at these these top two lugs here. The bottom two lugs are where the actual phone service comes in. This is important because I'll explain this in a second. There was a security system here, so it's set up a little bit differently than a normal house. But in a typical house, all of these lines, all of these jacks are just doubled together. And luckily here, they were all coming back to a single place, so I have access to each individual line. But, you know, in a typical house, they're connected together. So, like, you might have one jack that just connects to another jack, and there's only one pair of lines that comes all the way back to where your phone service comes in. And that's an issue because if you have a PBX or a KSU or a system that has individual extensions, it works on a star topology, then you need to connect individual lines back to every phone. And in fact, if you try to connect two of these phones to the same exact station port, it won't work. Either one will work and one won't sync up, or they'll both just sit there syncing indefinitely. It won't work. So in this house, luckily everything was coming back to here so I could separate it out and have individual lines. Now the reason why this house was a little bit different is because there was a security system here. So this Brinks security system, it hadn't been connected since 2012. It was here on this board. And the reason why security systems are different is because the security system is wired in such a way where it can disconnect the household phone wiring if it needs to place an emergency call. And it's not just for burglar purposes. A lot of these also do fire alarms and all kinds of other stuff. So it's important that it be able to, if it needs to, interrupt you and knock you off the phone and then dial its own, you know, its own communication session back to its head office, home office, wherever. So how it works is inside this alarm system, there's a RJ45 jack. And normally RJ45 jacks are not used for phone because usually they use the smaller RJ11 jacks just to make sure that you're plugging it into a phone line, because a lot of people, you know, they see this, they'll plug it in Ethernet. But the reason why this is a wide jack is because this is a very specific connection. But basically there's a pair coming in here for the phone line from the telephone service, and then there's another pair that goes out to the rest of the house. So it's kind of like an interrupt. So how it's wired is this wire right here, which is still half connected. The blue and the green leads go to the phone service from the street, and the yellow and the black leads were connecting back up to these other lugs where all of the other phones were connected. The other problem that you run into with existing wiring is that you don't know where it's going. So I installed this phone jack here on this end, but I don't know where the wires are going. From my experience in the rest of the house, it's a pretty good idea that the wiring probably is preserved. It's not just cut off on the wall. But I don't know which of those millions of wires in that room is the right wire. So I'm going to do something. So I'm going to tone it out using this toner. So this is from Fluke. The way it works is you turn it on and you plug it in to the phone jack. It also has these manual alligator clips in case you need to clip it onto some exposed terminals or wires or whatever. And the way it works is that there's this receiver, and when you turn it on, let me put this into a tone mode. You can hear there's a loud beep. In fact, if I press alternating, now you can definitely hear it. So that's how I know that that's the wire, and this is wireless. If I bring it like over here, I don't hear anything. And the closer I get to the wire, I can hear it. So now if I go to the other end, I should be able to easily, so like, it's not that wire. Let's see here. It's not part of that wire. Oh, it's in this bundle. So, there we go. This wire here. See how easy that is? And now if I want to, I can terminate that wire and I know exactly where it goes. I might just label it. I'll probably just bend it for now because I'm holding a camera. But that's how easy that is. What does that say on there?
I can't. Paranormal research.
Paranormal research.
Yeah, to know the unknown, equipped with infrared technology.
Infrared technology?
Yeah.
They got like a heat vision goggles. They're gonna look and see which chip on your motherboard
Serious
is overheating.
calls only.
Serious calls only. What's the number? Let's make a serious call.
Oh, I can't really read it right now. I have to take my glasses
When it
off.
pulled out in front of us, I thought it was the Ghostbusters car.
I know.
And She's like, no, it's a police car. I'm like, that is
It's gotta
not a
be
police
something.
car.
It's gonna be something not ridiculous, but
No,
it
it's
is ridiculous.
I'm telling you, it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. You're right. You were right.
Okay, I have this pillar in the middle here, and it's my intention to put monitors up on at least 3, probably 2, at least 2 sides of this. I'm gonna need some more outlets. I'm gonna need some HDMI. Alright, so here's what we got going on. I've opened up a hole here where I'm gonna put an old work box, which is one of these boxes. It will sit there and it'll have 2 double receptacles in it, so with a quad. I have my fish tape running down out here, out where I had installed the Wi-Fi switch, but now that I have my Wago lever nuts, I'm just gonna use those. I have them on here for safety, even though the circuit's off. Over here is where the phone jack was, where the security system originally was, and it was just like a shitty hole that was in the wall, like it wasn't even round, so I made it out to a square so I can put a proper box in there. And I'll have a data jack and a phone jack, and then I need to add some more outlets on the other side, so I'll see you when I'm done with that.
Alright, so we have a section of wire here. I cut a segment over a mix. That should be more than enough. You always want more than less. And I have just the X-Acto knife, and I'm just going to cut right down the middle of the wire. That's where the ground wire is, so you don't have to worry about. I mean, first of all, there's like this paper insulator, but even if there wasn't, the ground wire's in the middle. So if you cut down the middle, you never have to worry about cutting the black or the white insulation. Where's my fucking tools? Here we go. So I'm going to cut away all this insulation shit here. And this is also still not enough. I'm going to cut slightly longer. You always need more than you think you do when you're doing house wiring. It's not like speaker wiring where you can just tack on a little extra, you know, if you cut a little bit too short. You never really want to cut it too short. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is run this through I did a knockout here, so I'm going to shove this through here. If your piece of Romex is short enough, you can just kind of wiggle it around, and the conductors will just fall out like this. And then once one comes out, the others just slide right on out. Alright, I love Romex. Let's get some continuity mode going here. Turn on the beep. So before I plug anything in, first let's make sure that the grounding is grounded in all 4 motherfuckers. And then let's make sure that none of the hot or neutrals are in any way shorted together. Because when you have bare grounds in the case, sometimes that happens. Some people like to wrap the whole thing in electrical tape 5 times, but these wires are short enough and stiff enough that I think they're fine as long as they didn't fuck anything up when I screwed it in. They should be good. Like that should be connected to that, which is connected to that, and that, and that, and that should be connected to that, and that, and that, but not that, or that should be connected to that, and that should be connected to that, and that. Okay, everything seems fine.
This is what's called an old work box, which means you just slip it in the slot and tighten this screw and this screw, and it will anchor onto the sheetrock, as opposed to a new work box, which actually fastens directly to studs, which in our case are not actually available. And then once these are pretty snug, I wouldn't really tighten them any further. Most of the problems with these boxes are them pulling through the wall because people tighten them too much. I think right about there is good. I mean, it's already firmly in the wall, just sitting in that perfectly measured box that I cut. I think we're pretty good.
Alright, well the power's back on, so I have some more light to show you what's going on here. Here's the outlets that I just put in. They're live now, I'm going to test them in a second. Here's the switch box where the Wi-Fi outlet was. Here's all my, it's so much more beautiful now that I have the Wago lever nuts instead of the wire nuts and the electrical tape and all that shit. It's so beautiful. It's so reliable too. Like I don't mind having this out while it's live because all the connections are under this plastic. And even though it looks like it's effortless for this to lift up, they're actually really, really tight. Over here's the other outlets. Let me go find some that I can use to test these real quick.
Here we go, that outlet works. That one 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 works. And that one works. Perfect. I'm going to turn the power back off now and finish screwing everything together. Just a little advice, do not tighten these down all the way. These are not meant to be tightened down all the way. You'll crack your wall plate if you keep tightening that down until it's snug. Now before I close the wall up, I got my fish tape run in from the other room, and I'm going to run a couple strands of Cat 5 in here. Since I have the wall open, I'm just going to run them in this box. I don't know if I'll use them for anything, but once this wall is closed, I'm not going to want to take this shit apart again, so let's do it.
They have a Jesus fish. They do. And they have a 1 on the car, implying that there's more than one of them. Implying that this is car number 1.
Oh, you can totally see the number now, but I can't read it.
484, so they don't have a toll free. 484-554-64. Oh wait, serious calls only. Serious calls only. If you're gonna call that number, you better be serious.
Only serious calls. They're clearly quite serious people.
And serious means you need to record it and upload it as a comment.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm here in Europe with a bunch of Europeans. This isn't really Europe. I lied. Oh, this is really nice. I like the alternating black and white light on my face. Ooh. Alright, so we know the monitor works. Let's use this cable. Alright, so I have a Raspberry Pi set up, and right now I'm just removing a bunch of packages so that it runs faster, because this is going to be a kiosk for my kitchen. Part of what I had to remove is Minecraft and LibreOffice, which apparently are pre-installed, which is a fucking joke. I know. Can you believe that? LibreOffice? If you use LibreOffice, tell us in the comments why, and tell us how many people make fun of you for using LibreOffice. Fuck Ruby. Fuck it. I don't know anyone that uses Ruby. Tell us in the comments why you use Ruby. What do you mean waiting for headers? What kind of shitty server do they have? I want there to be a localization option to change the word localization to localization. Just to get your Phillips tip screwdriver. Find the Phillips tip. Here's the Phillips tip. The Phillips tip is really good for this. And you just do this.
You probably have to go from the top.
So moving on to video routing, doing a test right now. I'm not putting my desktop up here. This is actually going from this machine over here out a mini display port into a dongle to an HDMI cord, which comes over here. It's this braided one. Comes over to this transceiver. Then it goes into this Cat5 cable, which goes into this patch panel that I just punched down, which goes into this Cat5 cable. It goes into the wall, which is terminated over here, which is where this Cat5 cable is coming out, coming up into this other transceiver, then into an HDMI into the screen. So this works pretty well, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue with the rest of my work in here. And we're back. And you just go down and down and two more. So one neat little trick is you can flip the patch panel over and snap it back in reverse. And as long as your mounting job is pretty good, you can punch it down this way. I would just be extra cautious because, like, in this case, it's a cheap plastic piece of shit, so.
Alright, so you have the first two screens pretty much set up. I've hidden the transceiver box back there. The only thing I don't like are these blue cables here. I might get white ones, but, you know, I don't really care. I'm not going to install jacks behind the TV as much as I could. I gotta deal with this one. This one's like fucking flaking it out. I'm pretty sure it's the transceiver, but whatever.
So here's what it looks like back here so far. I got my patch panel, I got my extenders, I got my splitter. This is just the beginning. There's a lot more displays that go in my house. Okay, Google, turn off the basement lights.
Sure, turning 4 lights off.
So, I think this is pretty chill so far. Okay, Google, turn on the basement lights.
You got it, turning on 4 lights.
I'm gonna do some painting in here, and I was taking the covers off of these outlets so that I could paint around them, and this one seems to have crumbled. It's one of these tamper-resistant ones, and I'm gonna replace it with a newfangled USB combination outlet.
It is literally falling apart. Like, the plastic is literally falling apart. Look at this. This is ridiculous. This is why I don't like these tamper-resistant ones. First of all, the likelihood of someone shoving their finger in one of these holes is very, very tiny. And also this one was behind a fridge, so not only will there not be 3-year-olds down here, but they won't be able to get behind the fridge anyhow. Oh, wire nuts. Okay. Everyone loves wire nuts. Just kidding, not me. Alright, so this is actually interesting. This is actually daisy chain. It's not daisy chain through the outlet like it normally would be, which is nice because I have pigtails here, so I can just...
Normally you don't use your drill to tighten these, but I'm certainly going to use it to loosen these because this outlet is garbage.
But I'm going to have to straighten them all anyway, maybe, depending on the outlet I put in here. So give me a second. Alright, this is the outlet that I'm going to put in. So this type of outlet, I think I went over this last time, there's backstabbing, back wiring, and side wiring. I'm going to side wire this one because these wires are already kind of curled over, so they're going to fit on these screws nicely. But if these were straight wires, you could shove them in these tiny little slots here. Pardon my fingernail polish that's worn off. I'm doing housework. And pardon the fact there's no light here. These holes here, you can shove a straight wire in there, but this is not the kind of outlet where the wire gets secured by screwing the screw here. If you shove something in those holes, the only thing that will keep it there is a spring. There are back-wired outlets where you can actually shove the wire behind a plate here, behind the screw, and as you screw down, it tightens onto the wire, but that's not the case here. So I'm actually just going to use the normal screw terminals like it's 1950s because that's the most secure way I'm going to wire this outlet. Not to mention these wires are already curled around, so they're in the right shape for these screws. So there's always a brass and a silver, and the silver side goes to the white, the neutral, the brass, or the tainted one goes to the power, and then obviously the ground screw is the green one up here, so it's pretty straightforward. One of the tips you'll always hear that I can't stress enough is to wrap the wire around the screw in the direction you're turning it in. It is one thing when you're wiring up like phone lines and doorbells and shit that, you know, barely needs to make contact, but for electrical power like this, the shittier you secure the wire, the more resistance you create. So while, yeah, you know, even if it's just touching in one spot, you know, you can plug a lamp in here, it's going to work, but then you plug your refrigerator in here, you're creating a lot of resistance, a lot of heat, and just take the time to get the contact as good as possible. Make sure it's all the way around the screw, squeeze it, crimp it onto the screw if you need to. Don't just shove it under the screw and tighten it like it's a fucking, you know, like your sprinkler system. Like, do this right.
One big reason why you don't want to use a drill to tighten these is because these screws only have a short amount of travel in either direction. If you tighten it too far, you'll tighten it in. If you loosen it too far, you'll tighten it into the other side. So you really, even loosening them, unless you're going to destroy the outlet or throw it away anyway, don't want to use a drill for these because you will fucking strip that screw so easily. You don't want to fuck up an outlet because, you know, you'll put it in, it'll work fine for, you know, your lamp, and then you move out, the next person moves in, they plug an air conditioner in there, and suddenly you have a problem. So you gotta make sure these connections are good.
So one thing I see a lot of people do to prevent this terminal from being, you know, potentially shorted against the side of the panel or just to keep someone's fingers out of it, is they like to wrap the outlets or switches with electrical tape. And I'm not opposed to this, but this outlet actually has a transformer in here because of the DC USB ports, and these are actually vents back here. So if I were to wrap this with electrical tape the way I normally would, I would be closing all these vents here and then enclosing it in the wall, which is not a good idea. So I'm gonna try to be very careful. I do want to cover up this. I do want to cover up these terminals here, but I'm not gonna go all the way. I'm not gonna wrap it around several times. Calm down. I'm not gonna wrap it around several times like I normally would.
And finally, when you put the outlet back in the wall, you want to make sure all the wires go back there nicely. You don't want to be pushing the wires back when you push the outlet back. You should have enough free room on your pigtails that you should be able to pull the outlet out of the wall without pulling the wires, you know, further into the box or pulling on the wire nuts or the connections. So I make sure that all that is folded nicely back up there. You know, proper Romex house wiring has some bend to it. It should stay. It's solid core. And then it's just a matter of pushing this back. You never want to tighten it into the wall either. You want to make sure that it will go all the way up to where it's supposed to go and then tighten it. That way it's not the repetitive action of tightening the screws that's putting stress on the wires and the connections.
And then the last thing that's counterintuitive is you don't want to tighten these all the way into the box. And the reason for that is that in this case the box is relatively flush with the wall, but even still it's not. There's still like maybe 4 millimeters there between the front of the box and the front of the wall. The reason why these come with such long screws is because this should be flush up against the plate. And it's really the action of screwing the face plate into the outlet that actually trues everything up against the wall. So if you notice, all outlets and switches have a little bit of a give back and forth. You know, like even though both screws are in, I can still move this left, I can still move this right. And that's by design. When I put the switch plate or the outlet plate cover on here, the decor cover, it's going to pull the outlet up against the plate and the plate back against the wall, and it'll kind of sandwich them in there. So this should be as snug as possible, but if you sit here and you tighten this all the way until this is tight, number one, the outlet could be this way or this way, and it might not fit in the plate, or the plate will look shitty. But on top of it, in terms of depth, you want to make sure that the plate, you want to make sure that the face plate can pull the outlet up out of the wall up against where it needs to go. In Newark, when the houses are built or the walls are built, what typically happens is the electrician will rough in the box and he'll estimate how much drywall is going to go in front of it. But that's an estimate, you know. Not all drywall is the same, and you're always going to wind up with some variance. So in other walls, like if this was brick or cement or whatever, you might wind up with a really big gap there. A good example is over here. These It took me several tries, the power's off on this one, this is on one circuit, this is on the other, but it took me several tries to get these flush because the box on this wall was set so far back, almost behind the wall, almost to where it used to be, and then they put drywall on top of it, so it's, if you tighten it all the way, you're gonna have issues depending on how offset your wall surface is. But I think this is nice.
I'm gonna tighten it slightly more because I'm not gonna put the plate cover on here yet because I'm gonna be painting. It is this one, 11. And the light came on, and our shitty test load is in and working, so we're good. Alright, so I have my cat light here. I always test my outlets with my cat light. I plug it in, and there we go. Looks like we're good. Perfect. And finally, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in this little power strip because it has a grounded indicator, which means that it will tell me if my grounding is properly wired, which it is. I'll show you an example of an outlet that I did not wire that came in the house that is not properly grounded. At some point I need to replace this outlet because if you plug it in, you'll see that it is not properly grounded. I don't know if that's laziness or the grounding just came loose or whatever, but I don't like that because it gives me an unknown. You know, I don't know why that would be the case. The other outlets on that circuit are grounded, so I don't think it's the feed. I'm pretty sure it's just that outlet, but... And now it's several days later. I put up some shelving here for some storage in the studio area. This place is a mess because I've been painting. So this is still wet. It's not, it looks uneven, but it's just the wet spots. Literally just finished. So this should be good in the morning. And then this wall over here is going to be a gigantic dry erase wall so that I can do videos with whiteboarding without having to edit graphics. Oh shit, my battery's dead. Well, I'm in New York and I was gonna make a video, but I guess my battery is dead and I don't think I have a fucking charger for it in here. Let's see. This video can be like journey to... What the fuck is that? Ew, I don't know what that is. Let this be a lesson to you. Bring your cables.
Infrared technology.
Infrared, ooh, there's some red light, I can really look.
Nikon, they have a Nikon and a Bushnell and a Maglite decal. Why would they need that? Are they sponsored?
Thanks, fans. Do you see that?
Thanks, fans.
Thanks, fans.
It's probably a YouTube channel. It's really ridiculous. They have a crystal hanging from like their rearview mirror.
They do. You can see it on my cross. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see the shadow.
It's like any vinyl this guy gets his hands on goes on the back of this car. There's a Maglite. There's something I can't even read.
I know.
There's a really faded American flag. Doing laundry is loads of fun. It all comes out in the wash. Alright, so I need to put a telephone extension here since either me or my wife will be doing a lot of work in this room. So coincidentally there happens to be a green dot exactly where I want to put the phone.
Yeah, that's not as bad.
And then I'm going to put my fish tape in there. Widen it a little bit more. Easiest thing is to just drill another hole right next to it. This is going to have to be a somewhat large hole anyway because it's just going to be a jack here. And I'm not going to put a whole box here because it's just a telecommunications jack, but it is going to look nice. So I put my fish tape in here and I angle it up and I feed it through. So here's the back side. There's like this backer board here, and that's the reason why we have to use fish tape even though you can access it. So here's the top of the fish tape. So I'm just going to tape some Cat 5 to that and pull it through real quick. And now I pull the fish tape back onto the roll. Very slowly. And the problem is the hole isn't big enough. So now that we know that we have a path, I'm actually going to make the right size hole here. So 1 second. There we go. And we have our Cat 5. Like so. The next thing we need to do is actually punch down the jack. You know how I do. So I'm going to put a sock behind it to protect the wall, even though I just kind of put a huge hole in the wall. I don't want to burn the paint at random, arbitrary places. Make sure it's nice and in there. Nice and in there. Wow, that one was not nice and in there. What the fuck happened there? There we go. pull the jack out of the thing. Cut that off. Like so. And this is fucking jankiest motherfucking looking jack ever, but I promise you it will work. And I do need to cut this out slightly more. So there's your standard Cat 5 1-port cover plate. Comes with screws. Take the screws out of here for a second. And this just snaps in here like this. That can go right up against there. Already looks beautiful. They just strip out on the sheetrock or drywall because they're not. So these are flat-tipped, pointy-edged, small diameter. They'll fit in here, and they will be just enough to keep that on secure without stripping it through. You don't need a hole. There we go. Perfect.
I won't show you the gory details, but I got the cable all the way down over here to the punch-down block. Now, I'll be really surprised if this actually works because the amount of staples that went through the cable erroneously during the process. But like I said, I only need one of the 4 pairs in there, so we'll see what happens. And I'm going to punch down this block here. I do not have a 66 blade, unfortunately, with me today. I've spent the last hour looking for one, and I don't have one, so we're going to do this the old-fashioned way. And when I say the old-fashioned way, I mean the way I used to do it before I had a 66 blade. These two here, that one and that one, and here's the rest of the block. You can bitch about how bad it looks in the comments. I don't do this for a living. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna plug this in. There we go. There we go. Flashing. And in a couple seconds I should get the time and date. There we go. Let's turn the contrast up. Maybe not that high. There we go. That looks good on camera. Now let's see what phone number it is. Future star 0. It is 245, which is a new extension. I have to program this.
I'm just going to shove my monkey hook right where it needs to be. On one side, and again on the other side. Right up at the top there. And then I'm going to pull this off. And I'm going to push them through until they snap in. And what's actually snapping in is the back of the hook is coming right up against the back of the wall material.
Alright, so we're all set. The only thing we still have to do is program it in the system and label it and set all that up. But we're good. Doesn't that look good? I think it looks good.
Like the thing that's in their toe.
Oh, what is that? Yeah.
The bonus step?
The bonus step.
It's like a little step that you can step on to climb up into your trunk.
I want a bonus step.
Well, do you have a tow hitch?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
We can get a bonus step. Is the supermarket called the supermarket?
It's superfood.
Superfood supermarket. That's some real shit.